Hey guys, in this session we're going to be looking at the 2013 tables, equation and graphs paper. Alright, so the best way to do this paper would be when I go through the questions, just pause at the start of the question, try and work out the answer by yourself, and then you can actually have a look at my answer and see if you're on the right track. Alright, so let's get started. So with the first question here, what have we got? Jamie's grandmother gives him $5 plus $2 for each year of his life. There's a table, and we've got write the equation for the amount Jamie was given by his grandmother in terms of his age n. So the best way to do this is just having a look at the numbers that Jamie, the amount of money Jamie is actually receiving. So if I make age as 4, he'll be getting 13. If I make this 5, he'll be getting 15. So remember that the best way to do this is have a look at the difference between the numbers, and you can see that all the numbers on the amount of money that he receives is actually increasing by 2. So what we can say then is A equals to 2 n, all right, because that's where that n comes from. Obviously you got to figure out what the c value is, because remember that a straight line has the formation of y equals mx plus c. Now to do that, just go back to your table and just work this number back all the way to 0. So see how it goes: 3, 2, 1, and then if I just put a little 0 here, what would this number here be? So it'll be 9, 7, 5. So then my c value is going to be 5. So the equation, 2n plus 5. Now you could do this in the graphics calculator if you want. You should end up with the same answer. Okay, moving on to the next question. So with this question they're asking find the amount Jamie was given by his grandmother at Christmas when he was 12. So it says you must show use of your equation from part 1. Now part 1 was worth and achieved. So this one here, you have the equation, which is A equals 2n plus 5. That's from part 1. So now you're trying to figure out when n equals to 12, what is A? So you have A equals 2 times 12 plus 5, and this equals to 29. And this is worth and achieved. Okay, let's go to the next question. So on the grid below, plot the graph that shows the amount of money that Jamie's grandmother had given him for each Christmas. So if we go back and bring that, actually no, we don't need the table. I mean, I can kind of remember it. So I think it was, you had n and a, you had 1, 2, 3, and then here you had 7, 9, and 11. All right, so when n is 1, we've got 7, 9, 11, and obviously you can just keep it going if you want. So one thing to note with this particular question is even some people might automatically put this as 2n plus 5, so they might actually have put a little dot here, or also sometimes they might actually say, well, when he's 0 years he's actually getting 0 money, so they might put dots here. According to the marking schedule, you will get achieved for this grade, so achieved for this question. So I think even if you put those 2 red dots, you still get a achieved for it. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, guys, so for this question, you've got his sister is actually 3 years younger than him, and she's also getting some extra money. Now, the key part about this is you're actually asked to draw a graph for the total amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my original table first. All right, I know that it says A here, but remember that this A stands for amount Jamie received. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put here, this is the amount Jamie actually received. So Jamie received 7, 9, 11, and 13. Now, Jamie's sister is Anna. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Anna here and put down the age on this side. So basically Anna is 3 years younger than him, which means if Jamie is 4 years old, then Anna is going to be 1 year old. And if she's 1 year old, her grandmother gave her $5 plus $2 for each of the time that each year of Anna's life. So she's going to be looking at 7. Now looking at Jamie's money here, so he's going to get 15 and then 17. So what we then have is Anna is going to be 2 and 3, and so she's getting $5 plus $2 for each of her birthdays, so she's going to get 7, 9 and 11. Okay, so now however, this question is actually asking you for the total amount of money that they have. So if you look at the total amount of money they have, so we've got 7 and, well, she's not born yet, so we've got 7, 9, 11, but of course we're not really going to worry about those 3 things. So we're looking at total amount that their grandmother had given them each Christmas. So we're only looking at from this point onwards when Anna is 1 year old. So we got 20, we got 24, so that's 15 and 9 is 24, 17 and 11 is 28. So if I was to plot this, when n equals to 4, the total amount of money they have is 20. When n equals 5, I've got 24. And then when n equals to 6, I have 28. So basically for the grades, guys, you are given, you've got to draw this without a line, so you can't really have a line because these are discrete points. And if it's drawn without a line, you actually are looking at a merit. But if you actually join this as a line, then you're making it continuous, which would make this an achieved. Okay, hopefully that helps with this question. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so question number 5 is, this Christmas, Jamie and Anna received a total of $44. All right, so we've got total equals $44. And it's saying write at least one equation and use this to find how old Jamie was this Christmas. So the best thing to do is have a look at the table we were working with before. So we had n on one axis, and then we had the total amount of money they had on the other one. Now we knew when they were 4, we had it at 20, 24, and 28 the following years. So what we need to do is we kind of need to look at how much these numbers are increasing by. So these numbers are increasing by 4, which means the number before 20 would have been 16, before that would be 12, before that would be 8. And remember how I showed you guys in the first question, if you want to create an equation for a straight line, you need to have where x, or the x variable has to be 0, which means this number here will end up being 4. So what you actually have is, you've got your equation y equals mx plus c. In this case, you actually have this equation that total equals the gradient. The gradient in this case is, as you can see, the 4 x, and then your c value is obviously going to be this here, which is going to be plus 4. So that is what one of your equation is. So 4x plus 4 is the equation for the total. So now it's just a matter of saying, okay, 4x plus 4 equals 44. So 4x equals 44 minus 4, and you've got 4x equals 40, and x equals to 40 divided by 4. So in this case, you should get x is equal to 10. Now I've written it as x, but I mean, you could actually say how old Jamie was this Christmas. So that's actually when n equals to 4, when n equals to 10. So you're trying to say that, so yeah, Jamie, so the answer is going to be 10. That's how old Jamie was when they received a total of $44. All right, so writing that equation is going to get you, and then solving the equation is going to get you a merit. If you just put answer only as 10, you get an achieved, or if you just come up with an equation, you get an achieved as well. All right, cool. Let's go to the next question. Okay, so for this question, they're asking, give the equation to calculate the total amount Jamie's grandmother had given him in N Christmases. All right, so what they're actually asking you is, you know how you had N as 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is how much Jamie actually received, which was 7 on that first Christmas, then he got 9, then he got 11, and then he got $13, right? But what they're actually asking you in this question is, give an equation, not for this one, they're actually asking you for the total amount Jamie's grandmother had given him over N Christmases. So if you look at the total, after the first year, he has $7. After the second year, you got to add 7 and 9, which is going to be $16. Then after the third year, he's got 16 plus 11, which is 27. And then the fourth year, 27 plus 13 is going to be 40. So you're actually looking for an equation for these things here. All right, so in saying that, how are you supposed to do this? All right, so the first thing what you want to do is you want to have a look at the differences. If you have a look at it, you've got between 7 and 16 it's 9, between 16 and 27 is 11, between 27 and 40 is 13. So straight away you know that this is not a linear equation. And if you look at the second difference is plus 2 plus 2, so the second difference is the same, therefore you're working with a quadratic. Okay, so once you figured out that it's a quadratic, you've got a couple of options here. You can put this in a calculator, because when you put it in a graphics calculator, you need, remember, you need 3 points. So you could actually have x and y, where you could have 1, 2, 3, and the y values would be 7, 16, and 27. All right, that's, and when you put that in your graphics calculator, you should get the equation straight away. Okay, now let's say you don't want to do it with the graphics calculator. How do you actually work with numbers like this? Now, sometimes it's just having a look at the numbers and seeing if there's any sort of patterns. All right, now this I don't think it will work for every one of these tables, but sometimes it can work. So when I actually look at the table, I've got N is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I look at my totals. My totals are 7, 16, 27, and 40. Now, like I said, guys, you've got to do a lot of numbers to actually see a pattern in this. But there is a pattern, and the pattern is 7. I could write it as 1 times 7. 16, I could write it as 2 times 8. 27, I could write it as 3 times 9. 40 could be written as 4 times 10. So you can kind of see that what I'm actually doing is, if this ends up being n, then the formula for this would be n, because see how the 4 and 4 is the same, 3 and 3 is the same, 2 and 2 is the same. So n and n is going to stay the same, multiplied by, the next thing that I notice is the difference between these numbers and n itself. So between 4 and 10, the difference is 6. Between 3 and 9, the difference is 6. So I could write it as n times n plus 6. Okay, so that means I could actually write the equation for my total here as n times n plus 6, or I could write it as n squared plus 6n. Right, so what do you get for this particular equation? You get an excellence if you get the equation right. If you work out the totals, you get an achieved. So guys, that's one way, is you can do the graphics calculator. The other is kind of like just playing around with the table and actually figuring out a pattern. You could use simultaneous equations. You could also work these numbers here backwards and try and figure it out. But yeah, it's just a matter of playing around with the ideas. Okay, I believe that's all for this question, and we'll go to the next question. Okay, so for this question, you've been asked to give the equation of the graph below. So as usual, folks, if you have a graphics calculator, what you could do is you could actually pick 3 points, 3 absolutely clear points that you're sure about, substitute it in a graphics calculator and get your answer. So I'd probably pick this one here, and I'm pretty sure that that's probably going at 1, or even I might even pick something like this where it's going at 5 and 5. Okay, so the 3 points that I'm looking at, please be careful when you look at these types of graphs, guys, because they do tend to change the scale, so just be careful with that. All right, so this first point here is going to be 0, 0. The second point here is going to be 3, 0. And then my last point here is going to be 5 and 5. Okay, so let's say you don't have a graphics calculator and you want to be able to actually do this. So the first thing I'll put this in is the intercept form. So I have y equals 2 some sort of, well, I've got a multiplied by my 2 intercepts. In this case, I've got 0 and 3. So then this is going to be x minus 0, x minus 3. So what I have is y equals to a times x minus 3. Now, I think even if you get up to this part, you'd be looking at getting an achieved. All right. So if you want to figure out what this a value is, all you got to do is substitute one of these points. So I'm going to use the point 5, 5. All right. So what I then have is 5 equals a times 5. And then I've got 5 minus 3. So when I simplify this, I'm going to get 5 equals a times 5 over 2. So 5 is equal to 10a. 5 over 10 equals a. Therefore, a is equal to 0.5. And so my equation is going to be y equals to 0.5 x minus 3. Okay? And that should get you a nice, easy excellence there. Cool. That's it for this question, guys. We go to the next question. Okay, so question number 2 here. We've got Mani's working, got a part-time job. She decides to give her coach $20 for a trip at each of the 14 Friday practices. Plot the graph of the total amount she has given her coach at the end of each practice. All right, so that means first one, she's going to be at 20. All right, and it just basically just keeps going up in 20. There we go. Sorry about that last one, but it's pretty hard with these pens. Now, that's basically all you need to do to get a nice simple achieve. Now, even if you draw this as a line, in this particular question, they're giving it to you as an achieved. But really, start looking at the context of the question, guys. You know that she's not going to be able to give, between 1 and 2. So you got to keep it as discrete points. Cool. Next question. Now the second part of the question, I'm sorry, I've kind of left it out here. The second part of the question asked for the equation of the line that you just drawn. All right, so they said that if they had drawn a line straight through this, what would the equation be? Now you can see that the gradient is 20 and the point is cutting at 0, 0. So the equation that you're going to end up with is t equals 20p. And that should be an achieved for the second part of this question. All right, guys, so with the third question, what happens is the total cost of the trip was $300. And after several practices, Mani has paid a coach. She's told that she's not going because, well, she can't actually meet that $300 target. Now, basically the question says Marnie needs to start paying the coach $30 a week so that she meets her $300 target. So in the grid here, plot the graph of the change amount she needs to pay. So what it's asking you is, she's got to pay, meet her target of 300 at the end of the 14 weeks. All right. So that's going to be at 300. Okay. So if she starts paying $30 a week, so the week before that, she would have actually paid 270. And then if you look at the week before that, she would have had to pay 240. So basically, all you're really doing for this question is you are just plotting those two different points, the one at 270 and one at 300. And if you have the correct graph and if you have the correct value, you actually are getting a merit for this question. If you just have one of those graph correct or just one of those values, then you are actually looking at an achieved. Okay, so let's have a look at the next part of this question. So the next part of the question says, for how many weeks does Marnie need to pay the increased amount so that she meets her $300 target at the 14th practice? All right, so we know that she's gonna at 300, and that's at 270, that's going to be at 240. So basically, all you need to mention is that she needs to actually get paid. She needs to pay for 2 extra weeks. Okay, so I guess what I forgot to tell you guys is that this question and the previous question is kind of like one question. So if you get the 2 weeks correct and the points correct, you get a merit. But if you just put just the points, but you forget to write the 2 weeks, then you only get an achieved. Okay, cool. So that's question number 4. Let's go to question number 5. So question 5 says, give the equation for the graphs representing the increased payments. Okay, so what were the increased payments? We were at, so that was at 300, and then the week before that was 270. So we know that this is a straight line. All right, so we can write this as y equals mx plus c. Now, what we also know is that she's actually increased her her money by $30. So we know that the gradient in this case, which is this part here, is going to be $30. So our equation is we've got t equals m times p plus c. Now the gradient is 30. All right, that's this number here because that's how much she's increased her payments by. So we can write that as 30p plus c. Now we got to figure out what this c value is. So the best way to do that is use one of these values to substitute. So when she's after 14 weeks, she's paying $300. So that's what I'm going to use. So I could write this as 300 equals 30 multiplied by 14 and plus c. Okay, so then what I have is I've got 300 equals 420 plus c, and when I rearrange this, I'm going to get c equals minus 120. So the equation that I'm looking at in this case is going to be t equals 30p minus 120. So in terms of grades, get the last part right, you get an excellence. If you get either C correct or you understand that the gradient is correct, then it's not a merit, sorry, that should be an achieved. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, guys, so for this question, you've got Sam who's found a puzzle in a book. He's been told to follow some instructions, and yeah, basically he's curious. He made a table and filled in some numbers. Now this question is asking you to complete the third column of the table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first one anyway, just so you can kind of see what's happening. So the first try, thinks of a number as 5, add 2, 7, multiply by 3, that's 7 times, let me just go 5 plus 2 there is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Add on your number, so it's 21 plus 5 is 26. Add 6, so you got 26 plus 6 is 32. Divide by 4, so it's 32 divided by 4 is 8. Take away your number. So 8 minus 5 is going to be 3. Same thing here. I've got 10 plus 2 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. 36 plus 5 is 41. Oh, sorry, not 5. It should be 10. 36 plus 10 is 46. And then 46 plus 6 is 52. 52 divided by 4 is 13. And 13 minus 10 is 3. All right. So now, when we're given n, what we basically asked to do is we just try to do a little bit of algebra here. So we did 10 plus 2 is 12. So in the next case, we've got to do 3 times the previous number. So we're going to do 3 times n plus 2, which is going to give us 3n plus 6. Next it says add your number. So 3n plus 6 plus n is going to give me 4n plus 6. Next it says add 6. So 4n plus 6 is going to give me 4n plus 12. Now it says divide by 4. So I've got 4n, let me just work this here. So I've got 4n plus 12 divided by 4. This could be written as 4n over 4 plus 12 over 4. So I end up with n plus 3. And finally it says take away your number. My number was n, so n minus n is 0. So what I end up with is 3. Okay, so that's the first part of this question. And I think that should get me an achieved. Now it says accept unsimplified, rest of third column correct. So you've got to actually put the rest of the third column to actually get an achieved. All right, now this is just some algebra, folks. Now we shall go to the second part of this question. All right, guys, so what you have is the starting number, all right, that's this right here, is actually multiplied by 3. So that's going to be 3n. And then it's added on your number. So at this part here, it's going to be 4n. Okay. When you divide it by 4, the 4n divided by 4 takes you back to your n. And then finally, when you take away your number, which is your minus n, it actually becomes 0. So that's the first part you kind of need to understand. Now the second part is looking at this particular 2 here. When you take the 2, you multiply it by 3, you get 6. All right. Now just leaving on that, I've already done this part. When I add 6 here at this line, I now actually have 12. And when I do this line here, when it's divided by 4, so 12 divided by 4, I'm going to get always the number 3. All right. So it's kind of like doing this problem in 2 separate ways and just following the instructions. So the way this question is being marked is that you've got to talk about 3 things. The first thing is your combination of 4n. Your second thing is how this n actually becomes 0 when you get rid of it. And the third thing is how this 6 ends up being a 3. So that's a full description. You're actually looking at an excellence. Now, a partial description. So you've got 3 things there. And if you do all 3, it's looking at excellence. 2 of them gets you merit. 1 of them gets you an achieved. Yeah, that's basically this question. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so with this question, you've got Susie rides a bike to a friend's house at a constant speed. Then they walk to school together at a constant speed. The distance from Susie is given blah 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 in this table. Let's have a look. So what we're doing is on the axis below, sketch the graph of the distance that Susie is from school at any time t minutes after leaving home. So initially, when t equals to 0, she's still got 2,500 meters to go. When t is equal to 2, all right, that's when she arrives at a friend's house. She's actually got still 2 kilometers to go. So at 2, it's going to be 2,000. Now, because she's going at a constant speed, this is going to be a line that's That's a terrible straight line, but I'm going to do that one later on. Let's see. There you go. Sorry guys, it's a terrible straight line. And the next one is that she leaves her friend's house after 15 minutes, and so the distance from school is at 2,000. So at 15, it's at 2,000. There we go. And then she arrives at school after 35 minutes. So at 35 minutes, she's arrived at school, which means the distance is 0. Now, I know that I've actually drawn this as a terrible graph with straight lines, but please guys, when you draw this in your exam, just make sure you draw it with proper straight lines and get those points correct. Okay? Because, why? If you get everything right here, you're looking at a merit. But if you only do like 2 sections of this correct, you only get an achieved. Or if you put points but you don't actually join them, then you also just get an achieved as well. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right guys, and for the second part of this question, you've been asked for your graph, give the equation for these particular times here. All right, so between 2 and 15, we're looking at between here and here, and we can see that it's a straight line and it's cutting at 2,000. So we can write this as d equals to 2,000. All right. So the next one is you've got to actually work out between 15 and 35, which is going to be from here to here. Now, as we've done so far in this paper, we know that the gradient could be written, I'm going to work on this side here guys, y equals mx plus c. So first off, you got to figure out what the gradient is. Now, to have a look at the gradient, you look at what the rise over run is. All right, so in this case our gradient is going to be negative 2,000 divided by 35 minus 15, which is 20. So the gradient is going to be negative 100. Now you could do this in the graphics calculator. If you do it in the graphics calculator, you would use these 2 points, 15 2,000 and 35 and 0. Okay, now that we've got our gradient, we're going to write it here as d is equal to minus 100 t plus c. We need to figure out what the c value is. I'm going to use the points 35 and 0. Okay, so when I do that, I get 0 equals minus 100 multiplied by 35 and plus c. So I'm going to have 0 equals minus 3500 plus c. Therefore, c is equal to 3500. So the equation that I'm looking at is d equals minus 100t plus 3500. Now, you don't need to do this like this, guys. So if you have a graphics calculator, check out one of the other videos that I'd made where how to get an equation from any 2 points, and you should be able to write the equation for this. Okay, so if you have both equations correct, then you're looking at an excellence. If you have one equation correct, so it's a merit for either getting this one or this one. And I think if you have gradient or intercept, so if you get a gradient here correct, then that's going to give you an achieved. Cool, let's go to the next question. All right guys, so in this question, I kind of skipped the question here. The question actually said plot the graph. Okay, that's what this question was. I think this was B1. So to plot the graph, I mean, what have we got? We've got at -2 it's 5, at -1 it's at 0, at 0 at -3, 1 -4, 2 is -3, 3 0, and 4 at 5, and then 5 it's at 12. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to create a nice beautiful curve. All right, I'm going to try and do this. Nearly got it. There we go. That's the best I can do with a stylus, folks. But there's my graph. All right, and that is what an achieved. Okay, let's go to the second part of this question. All right, guys, so for this question, you've actually been asked to find the equation of this graph. So as usual, option A, you could put it in the graphics calculator. All right, option B, you could do a vertex form and figure out what the A value is, or you could do the intercept form. Now, I know I showed you how to do intercept form in one of my examples previously. So in this one, I'm going to show you how to do it by vertex form, all right? So vertex form, my point is at 1, -4, which means I could write this as y equals to A times x minus 1 squared minus 4. Now, I've got to figure out what the A value is, so I need to choose a point to substitute. Now, always remember, pick an easy point to work with. So in this case, I'm going to actually work with, let's see, what should I do? I'm going to work with this point right here, which is 3 and 0. Okay, so when I substitute 3 and 0, I should figure out what my A value is. So I've got, whoa, sorry, got that the wrong way around. Hold up. So I have 0 equals A times minus 1 squared minus 4. So that's going to be 3. So when I solve this, I get 0 equals A times 2 squared minus 4. 0 equals 2 squared is 4. 4A minus 4. Rearranging this, I get 4 equals 4A. A is equal to 4 divided by 4. So A equals to 1. So my equation is y equals to x minus 1 squared minus 4. Now, if you do this in the graphics calculator, you're probably going to end up with the expanded version of this, which is x squared minus 2x minus 3. That's absolutely fine. You can leave your answer like that as well. And if you had done this with the intercept form, so remember that you've got, with intercepts, you've got one intercept there and the other one there. So with the intercept form, you could write it as y equals A times x plus 1, x minus 3. And basically, guys, just substitute 3 and 0, work it out again. Nah, you don't want me to show you, do you? All right, I'll show it to you. So you got 3 and 0, which means I'm going to have 0 equals A times the problem with this though is if I use 3, 0, I actually will have a value of 0, so I shouldn't really use that point. So don't use 3 and 0 in this case. Let me see, where else can I work? I'm going to work here, folks. Maybe choose a different point. I'm going to choose this point here, which is 0, -3. All right, so I've got y equals A times x plus 1, x minus 3. So I've got -3 equals A times 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 minus 3 is -3. So I get -3 equals A times -3. Therefore, A equals to 1. So I can write my equation as x plus 1 and x minus 3. So got a lots of different ways of writing this. There's your intercept. There's your simplified version. And then there's your vertex form. Only one grade for this question, guys, merit. So if you can, do it in the graphics calculator. Nice and easy merit right there for you. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, guys, so for this last question here, if the graph was moved so that its lowest point was at 3, -1, describe how the graph would change and give the new equation of the graph. So, well, I guess this is where that vertex form really comes in handy. Now, remember that this equation here, we had it in 3 different formats, right? The first format was the vertex form, which was y equals to x minus 1 squared minus 4. All right, so that's, I'm going to do the vertex form first. So with the vertex form, the lowest point in this case is at -1, +4. Yeah, so this is the original equation. Now, if the graph was moved so the lowest point was at 3, -1, so the lowest point is at 3, -1, so the vertex has moved to there. So if I was going to write that as an equation, now because the a value does not change, so the a value doesn't change, which means I can rewrite this as y equals to x minus 3 squared minus 4. Sorry, not minus 4, minus 1, because that's where my new point is. My new vertex is at 3, negative 1. And basically, my explanation would be the graph has moved, let's see, we've got 2 units to the right, and 1, 2, 3, and 3 or up 3 units. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it for this question. So it's easy because we had done it in vertex form. Now, if we had done this in a graphics calculator, if you were to do this in a graphics calculator, what you need to do is graphics calculator. So with the graphics calculator, remember you need 3 points to work with. So you've obviously moved that first point because that's the lowest. This right here is the lowest point, and you moved it 2 spots, like basically you've transformed it from here to here. So what you must do is you must kind of repeat that for 2 other points. So do the same for something like this point. If I move it 2 right, 3 up, it's going to be there, and then move this point, which is 2 right, 3 up, is going to be there. So the parabola that you'd be looking at is that light blue line that I'm looking at. Okay, so you kind of need to move it and then draw it and then see what happens. I guess this is where the vertex form comes really, it comes quite handy with that. Now with the what do you call it? The intercept form, it's slightly different. So remember that the intercept form, the equation was y equals x minus 1, x plus 1, and x minus 3. All right. So you kind of have taken this, you've shifted your graph 2 units to the right, which means you've got to subtract 2 from both ends. All right, so that means the graph is going to be replaced as y equals x minus 1 and x minus 5. All right, because remember that your x-intercepts have moved 2 units this way. So that's where the 1 and 5 comes from. And then you're moving it up by 3. So if you move the entire graph by 3, you've got to add 3 to the end. So that's what the equation is. So best thing, guys, is to actually work with vertex form, because if you work with vertex form, it's a lot easier to move things around, especially if you're moving it with a vector. All right, so let's see, what do you need for excellence? You need the translation of the graph, and you need to talk about and get the equation correctly. All right, so basically this right here is going to get you an excellence. Merit is if you actually do one of them, which is changes, full description of the changes to the graph, or equation correct. And for achieved, you kind of have described the translation, partially described it. Okay, that's basically it for this question, guys, and I think that's the end of the paper. Yeah, that is the end of the paper. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and good luck for your exams. Just remember, if you have any questions, just pop it in the comment section below, and use your graphics calculator. I've made a playlist with how to actually create equations for linear and quadratic. So learn how to do it so you can save a bit of time. But apart from that, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and like I said, good luck.